Hello folks, my name is Tim, and this is part 3 in a 3-part series on cassette maintenance and restoration. And so the first one I did was on how to make a J card, basically, when you're missing one. The second tape was how to, if you have a good J card but you're missing the tape, how do you actually make a tape with the proper correct labels for the tape for the J card that you're missing the tape from. And so I thought I would make a third video, and this one will be a combination of the two. So in this case, we're not missing one part of the tape or the other. We're just actually going to make a tape right from scratch. And it's just basically a combination of the first two videos and just applying that in one sort of mock pre-recorded tape, I guess. So in this case, I'm teaching fair use. So I'm not teaching you how to bootleg stuff. I'm actually teaching you how to back up some of your own media at home. And that is, by law here in Canada anyway, an acceptable use of cassette decks to back up some of your media. So in this case, I've got this album, which is one of my favorites from when I was a young teenager, and loved this. I've probably owned about 4 or 5 different versions, and I keep wearing the albums out because I just really like the album. And yeah, so rather than wearing out the album, I would like to make a tape copy of it. So I'm taking my own media here, which is an LP, and I'll be recording it onto cassette. But instead of doing the old, crack open up a brand new tape and pen inscribing all the titles of the songs and everything, as well as the name of the band and the album, I don't happen to think that those are, they look good. So I like to have all my tapes lined up on the shelf, and I want them, to be able to easily spot the tape that I'm looking for. I usually have them all listed alphabetically, so I can, go to man for man, go to the M section, and there'll be my tape. So that's what I'm going to do with this particular record. I'm going to do a needle drop on it. I'm going to record it onto a cassette tape, but what I want to do is make it look like it's a pre-recorded tape. So in my previous videos, I showed you the first video I showed you how to make a missing J card, and in the other video I showed you how to make the labels for a cassette that you're going to record over, whether it's a new cassette or a repurposed cassette. And so I saved all the time here showing you how to do that, because I showed you how to do that in the first 2 videos, which I'll link in the comments below, and you can go back and refresh your brains on how to do this. I use the exact same technique, using Discogs, going and finding the graphics, resizing them to the appropriate size, and then printing them out on my bubble jet printer. So I've saved the time here, and I've already done that, so we'll cut that out. So what are you going to need for tools to do this? Well, I like to have a nice steel ruler, for one thing, for bending the J card, and once I've cut everything out. You need a nice good scissor in order to cut your labels out. Some paper glue or a glue stick in order to stick the label onto the cassette shell. Again, I think I mentioned it in my previous videos that not ideal for permanence. I think contact cement would be a lot better. Some people use actual full sheet labels. I've actually ordered a packet, 100, just to try it. But I like this because it's non-invasive. It's easy to clean up if you make if you botch the job. Easy to pull the labels off and redo things. It's forgiving so that you can actually move the label around on the tape, so you can get it nice and centered without it just sticking really quickly like contact cement does. So I like that. It's probably not the best solution, but it works for me, and I'm happy with it. So I had lots of comments on my other videos, and yeah, I fully accept that that's not probably the best way to go, but for me, I happen to like it. and it works. So in this case, I think in the last video when I showed you how to make a tape, I had used a new old stock 60-minute cassette, or it was actually a 90-minute cassette, because of the length of the program. I think it was a Beatles tape or something like that. Well, in this case, I'm going to go the other route, and I've got a whole collection of, I've bought a couple of collections, and invariably you get stuck with a bunch of tapes you don't like, artists and genres that are not really in your lane. And so what I did was I went back to my collection, and I found this one here, which is Engelbert Humperdinck, the Timeless Series, A Man Without Love. It's a tape I will never, ever, ever listen to in my life. Sorry for Engelbert Humperdinck fans out there, but it just ain't my cup of tea. And if you open it up, the cassette is in absolutely immaculate condition. If you look at the pressure pad here, not soiled or dirty, so it hasn't been played very many times. I'm betting it's only been played once, and then whoever probably filed it, and it's never been played since. The cassette shell looks almost brand new. It's in really, really good shape. And of course it's stenciled all over with Engelbert Humperdinck, but of course when we put the labels on, that will cover it, and we'll have to cover the record tabs here in order to put it back into the machine and re-record my Manfred Mann album over there. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go and record. And once again, what I'll do is I'll find out what side is the longest. You can usually get a good flair for that. And then invariably you'll get maybe 5 or 10 minutes of tape that's unused. So what else I need is I use a driver, a wireless screwdriver with a bit that I printed off from Thingiverse. I've got a 3D printer, so what I did was I printed off a bunch of these bits so that you can actually wind your tapes instead of having to put it into a cassette deck to fast forward and rewind. And this does an amazing job because of the beauty. It's variable speed, so you can go as slow as you want or as fast as you want, and it works outstanding. So if anybody has never tried it, and anybody that's poo-pooed the idea, I've done literally thousands of tapes like this and never damaged one. So you just gotta be careful and make sure that you're right in the center of the drive mechanism here on the tapes, and it works bang on every time. And it saves wear and tear on your tape decks too, on the belts and everything in your tape decks. So great method of fast forwarding and rewinding your cassettes. Other tools of the trade, I use a splicing block. For trimming and cutting out, I use scissors for the outside edges of the labels, and I use a nice little X-Acto style knife to do some of the inner portions of the label on the cassette portion. And I showed that in the previous video, so you can go back and refresh yourself on that. If you're disassembling tapes, it's always good to have a screwdriver. I've got this electric screwdriver, which is really handy for unscrewing these. We won't have to do that for this one, but I always have one handy in case something jams or whatever. Nice razor blade for your splicing block. 1/8 inch wide splicing tape, which you can get online. Really nice set of fine needle nose pliers. And then I also get a roll of these labels, and you'll see in a minute when I snip the excess part off, I use a label to actually wind it around the drill bit here, so I can wind the tape off the spool that's unused. And that I just basically toss out because it's only like 3, 4, 5 minutes of tape. And that's mostly it. If I find anything new to add, I'll mention it during the course of the video. So I'm going to go and make the recording. You don't need to watch that, so I'm going to go side 1, cut or 1 or 2, whatever is the longest, cut the trim off, flip the tape, and then record the end of it, and then we'll pick it up from there. And so now what we'll do is we'll get the labels and everything done. and we'll show you that. So same procedure as the two videotapes, only I'm doing it previously, only I'm doing it all in one shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim out the J card in this case. And I use a really sort of a thick card stock. It's not card, it's still just paper, but extra white. So you can buy, you know, just the drafty kind of stuff, which is cheap. I spend a little extra money and get the really white, thicker bond paper, so that the J cards have a little bit of substance to them, like they do in the actual cassettes that you buy. Of course, they're out of cardboard. I don't run cardboard through my printers, so it's just a thick bond paper, and it holds up really well, and it prints really well because it's like super white in color, so it doesn't actually add kind of tinges to the coloring of your labels and whatnot, as they show on the Discogs database. So what we do is we'll just trim around the label portion, and we got these little notches here that I trim out and make sure that we follow, and cut that out there and there. Sometimes if your lighting isn't right, you get shadowing, so you want to be able to see your blade cut, so that you keep the line straight and your labels are actually not crooked by missing the straight lines here. So delicate surgery here, and we just trim it down the right size. And the rest of the paper just basically goes to recycling. All right, so there we go. I'll put that over here. I've got a recycling bin over in the other room, so we'll take that over when I'm done with that. And again, I think I mentioned in my previous videos that I use a cutting board on my tabletop, because that way I don't have to be fearful of cutting into the desktop and wrecking wood tabletops or anything like that. So first thing we'll do is we're going to repurpose even the jewel case, or the cassette case, is in really good shape on this one. So we're going to reuse that, the Engelbert Humperdinck one. And most of them you can actually see a really good line for where you're going to fold the J card. So that's why I use a steel ruler, because it can keep it nice and straight line. And as you can see, it does a really good job of providing a good crease for the spine of the cassette. It's really tough to see the lines on this one. It didn't. There we go. There we go. And just as easy as that, we have now made a beautiful case with J card, as you can see. And next we're going to do is we're going to trim out, and as you can see, there's different types of labels. Some of them actually go straight, and then it curves around the hubs of the cassette deck and then around. Some of them actually are just square. So I usually just trim them to however the label is that you're printing out on. The square ones are by far the easiest to cut, because you don't have to cut curves. But with a good X-Acto knife, it really isn't that tough of a job. So basically I use the ruler to line up the straight part, and my X-Acto knife, I trim along the edges, And there you see it. So you can see it actually does a really good job of cutting. And then I just go around, just eyeball it, hand bomb it to go around the hubs as it is stenciled on the label that you printed out. It really does a nice clean job of it, I find, just as long as you're careful. And there you go. And there you go. So that's side 2 right there. Do side 2 first, because the one I always photograph is the side 1 when I put it into my database. I've got an online database which I'll link in the comments section of this video, and you can actually see I've made about, I don't know, 140 of these tapes right now. So I'm constantly adding to it, sort of backing up my record collection and CD collection, and making a nice tape collection for up in my living room where I have entertain. And I've got a couple of decks up there that work really well at doing that task for me. So then I just get a little piece of paper towel, and I still got the recording holes here covered on the tape here, but what I'll do is we just line up the label here, make sure it's going to cover all the writing on this one, and it does. So then I just give it a good goop of glue stick. And you got to be careful, if some of the ones, if you've got corners, sometimes the glue actually shaves off and goes onto the front of the label, so you got to be very careful of avoiding that. Just got to know how to be gentle when you're putting applying the glue. So you can actually see this tape was actually a squared one, but it doesn't really matter. You don't notice it once the label's on. It just follows the contours of the hubs, so it looks really good, I think. So there we go. And there, look at that. Look at how good that looks. Along with the tape. We'll do side 2. Side 2. Apply the label. Oh yeah, see, I got a little bit there. So you just have to, that's why it's good to have paper towel, because you can, any excess glue you can kind of wipe it off with the paper towel. And make sure you cover your glue, otherwise it dries out really quick. And we'll apply that. Make sure it's all nice down and nice. And there you go. Looks just like a store-bought cassette, only it's a backup of my nice little LP, The Roaring Silence. And if you've never heard this album, phenomenal album. Love it to death. It is old, but I still enjoy it to this very day. So there we go. We've got a Roaring Silence. Now what I'll do is I'll show you how I trim the tape and everything. And we'll take a break here for a second, and I'll come back and show you that. Well, I'm back. It's the next day. Got late, and what happened was with this original tape that I did, which was the Engelbert Humperdinck, which this one here, I had made this tape, and usually I actually don't do the labels until I make sure the tape is long enough. In this case, for the expediency and making this video, I put the labels on first, and then I recorded the tape. Usually I look at the amount of tape on here. Most of the time, each of these gradations here are, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes or whatever. Anyway, I thought I had enough tape, and sure enough, I was about 15 seconds short. So made the tape. It wasn't long enough for the longest side of the record. And so I had to go back to square one. So I pulled out another tape out of my collection that wasn't, you know, something to my liking, and the cassette again was in excellent shape. So yeah, this was this Bobby King Terry Evans. Give it a listen. Not my taste, so I used that as a sacrificial tape. So I made that tape, made the recording, and just got in under the wire, but still there's a little bit of tape left in it. You know, when you're listening to Walkman, a minute or two of silence can be a little bit annoying before you get to the other side. So I like to time it so that when the program media completes, then I leave about 10 seconds and then I get rid of the other tape. So that's what we're going to do here to show you how I do that. Won't have to do much because there's not very much tape left, but there's enough that it makes a difference. So what I'll do is I'll pull the tape out here, and remembering I've got 10 seconds of silence, so I got a lot of room to play on this side here. And what I'll do is I'll use my little razor blade here to cut off the tape. So basically anything left on this spool here is empty, and the other side of the record is shorter than this one. So what we'll do, or a CD or whatever other program material you're using, that's where I use the little price labels. I'll just put a little sticker on the end of that, and then using my trusty drill driver with the cassette 3D printed bit on it, so that I can actually do winding with it. And you'll see how this goes. So I just tape it on the end of that, leave the tape there, and then I can unspool the reel of all the remaining blank tape. And there we go. We get to the leader. We stop, and I'll trim that off right at the edge of where the splicing tape is. So we got lots of leader left for the next splice. So that's extra blank tape that's just garbage. And now all I do is I take my splicing block, and I'll take this leader that I trimmed off and put it into my splicing block, pull it right to the edge where my splice is going to be. You get pretty handy at this. It happens pretty quick after you get used to doing it. First few times you'll be a little wary, but so what I do is I put the tape on the long side, and then I just cut off the excess here. And now we have a perfect butt splice there. And then we get our splicing tape. And we're going to take a little, it's always hard to find the end of it, but once you do, there we go. And I just cut a little, you know, maybe a ½ inch of it, if that, less than ½ inch actually. And I put it on and set it, and then I pull my thing, and then I just press all the bubbles out so it makes a good splice. And then using my needle nose tweezers, I'll just wind it up on the tape so that it goes to the end of the cassette. And there we go. Side one is complete, and we will go over and record side two. Sorry, I got the hiccups. And then yeah, then we've got a complete tape, and then we can pull the recording stickers off here so that it won't be recordable on it anymore. So we'll be back in a second. All right, now I'm done. So I just finished recording the side 2, and we're back to side 1 here. And now I can take the recording tabs off here, and more or less right protect the tape so you can't accidentally put it into record and erase your newly composed tape. And as you can see, now I've got a nice simulated, I guess, pre-recorded tape on a repurposed cassette, which was formerly Bobby King and Terry Evans. Tape condition was in outstanding shape, so the recording, when I monitored it on my 3-head deck, so I listened to it as I'm recording it just to make sure there's no dropouts or anything, and the recording turned out actually spectacular. So one of the other things I wanted to point out is between cassettes, records, and compact discs, depending on what you're copying from, oftentimes the song order on cassettes are different from either a CD or an LP. So it's really important when you start everything, start planning your making your tape, to make sure that you're adhering to the song order. For instance, I have a CD copy of this as well, and the CD order is completely different. I also have 2 versions of this record, and there's a gray one which actually has a separate, a different song on it. So just pay attention to that when you're downloading the labels to make sure it has the right song order and the correct songs on it. So this was actually a good example. I should have brought the other Roaring Silence copy that I have, because it's a gray one, and there's actually like I say, there's a song that's not on this one, on that tape. It was a sort of a special edition. So there you have it. We've now got another tape for the collection. I have these little stickers on the side here that I use for my, I've got an online database that I make for all the tapes that I make, as well as the pre-recorded tapes that I have. I keep them separate. And so these ones I only make for my own purposes, under fair use regulations, because I don't want to be accused of being a bootlegger. So there you have it. It's a nice way to dress up your collection, rather than just having hand-written out tapes from a Maxell UL or a UR or a XL2 or a TDK SA90 or 30 or 6 or SA60 or whatever. Nice way to cap off your collection. So thank you for watching.